Deep in the Dosone della Melia forest of Calabria, southern Italy, the terrain is incredibly rugged. It is an isolated, heavily wooded landscape of steep hillsides and rocky scrublands that looks entirely untouched by modern infrastructure. But if you look closely at these grass-covered foundations, you can see the faint outline of a massive structure. Recently, a team of environmentalists and archaeologists used LiDAR to scan this forest and revealed a 2.7-kilometer stone wall, hiding in plain sight. Buried in the dirt along this perimeter, the team uncovered a dense concentration of broken, rusted iron spearheads, curved blades, and sword handles. These stones mark a 2,000-year-old crime scene. We are looking at the exact physical location where the ultimate gladiator collided with the immovable force of Roman engineering. To understand how those weapons got there, we have to rewind to 71 BCE. For 2 years, Spartacus, a man trained to die in the sand of a Roman amphitheater, had been slaughtering Roman legions across Italy. His army of escaped slaves survived by utilizing highly unpredictable guerrilla tactics. In one famous instance, they wove vine ropes and rappelled down the vertical cliffs of Mount Vesuvius to envelop an unprepared Roman camp. The Roman Senate realized they were dealing with a highly lethal, unconventional threat. They handed supreme command of the military to Marcus Licinius Crassus. He was a ruthless real estate speculator, a slave trafficker, and arguably the wealthiest man in the Republic. Crassus inherited a terrified, demoralized army. To restore order, he immediately revived the ancient punishment of decimation. He divided the soldiers who had previously fled into groups of 10 and forced them to beat one of their own to death. Having secured the absolute obedience of his men, Crassus evaluated the enemy. He realized that meeting Spartacus in open-field combat played directly into the gladiator's strengths. He needed a completely different approach to warfare. Crassus decided to stop fighting with swords. He would defeat the rebels using shovels, dirt, and infinite capital. Crassus initiated a massive pursuit, steadily driving Spartacus southward until the rebel army was forced into the Bruttium Peninsula. If you look at a map, this is the very tip of the toe of the Italian boot. Spartacus initially planned to evacuate his forces across the narrow strait to Sicily. He paid a fleet of Cilician pirates in gold to ferry his army across the water, but the pirates took the money, abandoned the deal, and sailed away. Stranded on the mainland, the rebels had few options. Roman forces already controlled all the flat, easily walkable coastal roads, pushing Spartacus deep into the extremely hostile, rocky terrain of the Aspromonte Mountains. By pinning them in this isolated geographical pocket, Crassus successfully stripped Spartacus of his greatest strategic advantage, his mobility. With the rebels cornered, Crassus ordered the construction of an enormous physical barricade. This diagram shows a 15-foot deep, 15-foot wide trench, backed by an incredibly high earthen wall and topped with a wooden spike palisade. His legions built this structure across the entire 37-mile neck of the peninsula. The engineers also built sharp 180-degree L-shaped turns into the fortification. This geometry allowed the Roman defenders to fire down on an advancing enemy from multiple angles, creating a series of lethal choke points. The primary goal of this massive infrastructure project was logistical denial. Crassus severed all local foraging routes, initiating a slow, quiet starvation of the 40,000 people trapped on the other side. But Crassus was fighting against a ticking clock. Up north, his political rival, Pompey the Great, was rapidly marching a separate army south to intervene in the conflict. To ensure he secured the sole military glory for ending the rebellion before Pompey arrived, Crassus bypassed the Senate entirely. He funded the rapid construction of these 6 legions and the 37-mile wall out of his own private bank accounts. The wall served as a billionaire's exorbitant, desperate mechanism to win a political race in Rome. Inside the rebel camp, conditions rapidly deteriorated. Without access to fresh supplies, the gladiators and their followers began to starve in the freezing mountains. Facing complete annihilation, Spartacus gambled everything on a single massive night assault. He waited for a severe winter snowstorm to blind the Roman sentries and moved his army toward the barricade. To cross the 15-foot gap, the rebels hurled earth, heavy tree branches, and the freshly slaughtered bodies of their own horses into the trench, rapidly packing it down to create a makeshift bridge. Pushing across the gap, they violently shattered a section of the Roman line, breaking out of the peninsula into the open countryside. That night of frantic, freezing combat is exactly what archaeologists uncovered in the forest in 2024. The dense cluster of heavy, close-quarters weapons points directly to the chaotic moment Spartacus finally breached the wall. Despite the localized breakout, the barricade succeeded. It successfully delayed Spartacus, depleted his supplies, and fractured his remaining forces into disorganized splinter groups. Weakened and trapped by pursuing legions, Spartacus was soon forced into a pitched battle along the Salarius River. His exhausted army was entirely annihilated, and he was killed in the fighting. In a final historical irony, Pompey arrived just in time to capture the fleeing survivors. He immediately claimed the political credit for ending the war, fueling a bitter rivalry with Crassus that would ultimately doom the Roman Republic. Crassus's wall reveals the grim reality of Roman warfare. The Republic secured its dominion by suffocating resistance under the weight of infinite money, relentless labor, and immovable infrastructure.